The Romanian crisis regarding doctors have gotten so bad that even The Guardian is reporting on it. I remember reading an article from The Guardian on my channel a couple of months ago, and they were talking about how Romanians are treated in the United Kingdom, and they were only asking Romanians from the diaspora. They never came in and asked the Romanians in our country how they feel about the mass emigration of Romanians that are leaving. The reason Romanian doctors leave is that when I finished my University of Medicine, the wage was around $300 to $350 for a freshly graduated med student. On top of that, you have to work at least 10 to 11 hours a day in order to fill in for the shortage of doctors that is in the hospital. And this is not even talking about when you are on call. When you are on call, you have to work from 6 a.m. to the next day at 4 or 5 p.m. when your shift ends. That is around 32 hours that you're expected to stay at the hospital. Granted, you do have a bed and you can sleep at night, but that is only if there aren't emergencies coming in, and usually when you're on call there are plenty of emergencies coming in. So given the fact that you have to work like a slave and the wage is very low and the conditions in the hospitals are quite poor, a lot of people decide to go elsewhere. And from my class, there aren't a lot of people who stayed in my town. I think out of the entire graduation year that I was in, there's just a couple of dozens of people that are still in my town. Everyone else has left. It is very predatory what the European Union is doing to these poor nations in Eastern Europe. There is no way a nation like Romania, for example, which left communism, can compete with another nation like France or Britain, who has been capitalistic this whole time and has already developed the corporations and the wealth and the strength in order to be able to basically colonize Eastern Europe. And by this I don't mean the old-fashioned way of colonialism. I mean like the idea that you are using a country in order to subtract resources from it. And in this case, the resource might not seem as valuable at first, but it really is valuable. It's the brain drain. You're depriving these countries of human resources, basically. And there is no way that these countries can ever compete. There is no way that a country like Bulgaria will ever be able to compete with a nation like Germany or like the Great Britain. People keep throwing around human rights and they discuss about the Charter of Human Rights when talking about immigration, but in the Charter of Human Rights it also mentions that countries have a responsibility not to brain drain one nation. So for example, if you need doctors, you should only take a number of doctors from one country until you notice that it's going to destabilize the country, and then you get to take them from somewhere else. When you want to import things, you can decide where you get those things from, and taking it from different places is a lot more common sense, and you're going to do less harm to the nations than if you just target one specific area and you take all the people there. Furthermore, it's also bad for the British people. Like in my country, the University of Medicine is free. Now I paid for it, and if you look at the price, it was a couple of €1,000, certainly not as expensive as doing a medical university in Britain. Which means that a person who does the medical university in Britain is going to have student loans to pay, he's going to have debts, maybe he wants to purchase a house and start a family. So he's not going to be able to work for something less than, I don't know, £4,000, let's say. Meanwhile, a Romanian who doesn't have those debts, who doesn't have those loans, is more than willing to work for £3,000, £2,000 because, hey, it's a lot better than the $300 you're getting paid here. I suppose like the solution would be for British people to come over and study medicine in Romania and then go back into Britain. That might be a solution, but and it would be really cheap. But is that really fair for people? You see, I asked a person that's a neoliberal, a person that's a very progressive individual. And he told me that the solution for Romania would be to get people from somewhere else, like get doctors from Africa or something like that. So I guess the Romanian taxpayer has to pay his taxes for Romanians to study here so that they can be trained and grown and then sent off to Britain, France, and Germany. And then Romania would have to get people from Africa. And if you think about it, it's just passing the ball down the line. It's like, okay, but then it means that nations from Africa is going to suffer from the same issue that Romania is suffering. Is that a little bit racist if you think about it? It's a little bit predatory as well. It's like the Western Europe telling Eastern Europe, you need to grow our new doctors. You have the responsibility to grow our new scientists, our new doctors, because that's our privilege. We're in a privileged position to have more money and more wealth than you. So you need to cough up all of your skilled labor. So if you look at the Guardian article, it says that Gabriela Dumitru was supposed to retire years ago, but instead she's working longer hours than before. The 65-year-old is one half of a team of 2 doctors at the neonatology ward in Slobozia, a depressed town about 2 hours drive from Romania's capital, Bucharest. You get to hear these types of news all the time. It's usually 1 or 2 doctors who don't have any more free days. They work in the weekends. They don't take any days off because there is no one else in the hospital. And because they really care about the people and they really worry about what will happen to the patient if they take days off, they end up remaining at the hospital even when they should be able to retire. Like in this case. Dumitru works 3 or 4 24-hour shifts a week. This is actually false. A shift is not 24 hours. It's usually 32, but whatever. And imagine doing 2 or 3 of them per week. It is so stressful to the brain. It is so stressful to the psyche. And what's funny is that if you suddenly make a mistake, if you happen to do a malpractice or something like that, the mainstream media is going to be on your ass all the time. There is no excuse for this. Imagine having this job, okay, 2 to 3, 24 hours. In this case, trust me, it's a lot more than that, but still, 24 hours a week, 3 times. You're not going to have any more personal life. You're not going to be able to have any meaningful relationships. You're not going to be able to raise kids properly. You're not even able to have a cat. But anyway, catching an hour of sleep where possible on a sofa in a small box room decorated with pictures of kittens that he will never have. Her colleague is 75 and he officially retired 15 years ago. Between them, they do work of 4 or 5 doctors, delivering approximately 1,200 babies a year and caring for those born with difficulties or disabilities. So just do the math and find out how many babies they deliver a day. And this is because there aren't enough doctors, which also is a detriment to the patient because the doctor doesn't really have time to do that doctor to patient talk. Because there is such a huge number of patients, because every doctor now has to do the double the workload, triple the workload, sometimes even more. When are you going to have time to actually sit and have a conversation? You simply do not. If you just start talking with someone, it means that someone else down the line is going to be placed on the waiting queue even more, and they're not going to get the medical treatment. It's absolutely horrible. So the neonatology world in Slobozia is a small window into a larger crisis in Romania, where thousands of doctors and nurses have left the country for higher salaries in Europe over the past decade. In turn, Romania's medical crisis is a small part of the huge outflow of people from Central and Eastern European countries since they gained membership in the EU. Across the region, governments are struggling to deal with the consequences of many of their most talented young people leaving, and while many politicians in the region have played on fears of immigration to win support, research has shown that concern over emigration is more acute. In recent surveys, more than 50% of the Romanians said they were concerned about the impact of emigration on the country. An estimated 3.4 million Romanians have left the country in the decade after the European Union, according to a study by the Romanian business leaders, while the Ministry of Health estimates 43,000 doctors departing during the period. A study by the US-based Population Research Bureau, meanwhile, forecasts Romania's population will fall by 22% by 2050, the steepest projected global decline due to a combination of emigration, high mortality, low birth rates, and apparently similar countries like Bulgaria have worrying forecasts. A lot of people keep blaming the Romanian government for this, and while I do believe that corruption does play a big role in it, you look at neighboring countries and they're suffering from the same fate. It's not just Romania. So we're talking about Ialumița County, of which Slobozia is the capital. 44% of all positions for doctors are vacant. According to the most recent Ministry of Health statistic available, across the country the figure is 26%. The country is paying to train your doctors who then leave. Yeah, this is a major issue. It's not that people don't want to work, it's that they do want to work, but they don't want to work in the conditions and the salary in Romania, so they go into Germany, France, or the United Kingdom. There is literally nothing stopping a person from Romania that becomes a doctor to go on the internet, try to find a job in Britain, All he has to do is to know the language. Usually they even provide the training and accommodations there. So you use the internet, you find it, and then all you need to do is to get money for a plane ticket, which is usually like, I don't know, a couple of $100s. So you get to the plane, you get the plane ticket, you maybe make a bank loan so you can afford the first month of rent when you're going there, and bam, you're set. There is no reason to work in Romania. Absolutely none whatsoever. You only get disadvantages, no advantages whatsoever. Why do you think I have a YouTube career? I really love being a doctor. I really enjoyed working at the microbiology lab. I wanted to even start doing research. But this is far more profitable. At the end of the day, you have to pay the rent, you have to pay the electricity bill, you have to pay the gas prices, you need to cover this. And being a doctor in my country doesn't really cover it, unfortunately. Now, Raed Arafat, Romania's Secretary of State for Emergency Situation and himself a doctor who previously ran emergency medicine in Târgu Mureș, said that the first wave of migration came before Romania joined the EU, with many nurses traveling to Italy, and back then we lost our entire contingent of nurses in Târgu Mureș in the space of 2 years. And then we trained new ones and immediately lost half of them as well. When the economic crisis hit after the EU accession, things got really bad. We lost doctors we thought we would never leave. The most highly qualified physicians. It had an impact that couldn't be repaired. I remember the Romanian president during this big crisis when doctors were on strike and they were complaining about wages. The Romanian president said, well, they can just leave. If they don't like it here, they can just leave. And congratulations, President Traian Băsescu, they clearly have. And he was a right-winger, by the way. Well, joining the EU provided huge opportunities for talented young Romanians to travel, study, and work in Western Europe. Drawn by higher salaries and more opportunities, there are dozens of flights a day from airports across Romania, not only to London, Paris, and Rome, but to many smaller region cities where tens of thousands of Romanians have traveled for work. And it has left a huge gap in the labor market at home. In an attempt to stem the flow of medical professionals leaving the country, the government has doubled wages in the sector over the past year, but the struggle to retain people is particularly acute. Even if you double the wage, it's still nothing compared to what people earn in the United Kingdom. Okay, so from 350, I guess they made it to 700. It's possible. I haven't been in a hospital for, I believe, 3 years now. Or 2 years. I need to look at the calendar. But still, when I was there, it was 350. Let's assume that now it's 700. Still not enough. And here's the thing. You don't have to make it the same. A lot of people don't want to leave. It's not a good thing to leave all your friends behind, to leave all your family, all the people that you have known, relationships, everything that you leave it behind, and you go into a new country where you don't know anyone. It's a different language that you have to learn, different culture that you need to adapt to. And even if you know the language, if you know the English language, that doesn't mean you know the English medical terms, which you also have to study. It's really hard. It's difficult. And by the way, most Romanians, they get high prestige when they go into other countries. Like they come back with letters of recommendations and stuff. And it's not just that, like they manage to invent and bring a lot of things to the scientific literature. So it's not that Romanians are lazy or anything like that. They just don't want to work as slaves for 32 hours, 2 to 3 times a week for a very modest pay. In Slobozia, there are very few opportunities locally for anyone with an ambition. Large, multicolored letters spelling out the town's name, face on the main square, an effort to brighten up the surroundings. But it is little for young people to do and few buildings constructed since the collapse of communism. So it is not just skilled workers who have left the country. There are 3 million Romanians living abroad, many of them with low qualifications, and without this would have huge rural unemployment. The real tragedy is that the system is not changing enough to attract them back here. We'll bring back your children. I don't know what you can do to change the system in order to be able to compete with the United Kingdom, to be able to compete with France, to be able to compete with Germany. I genuinely do not know, because you already have these foreign corporations in our country. So like the small business owner already has to compete with multi-billion-dollar industries that can simply just destroy your little business with an aggressive advertisement campaign by doing lobbying to politicians in the European Union so that they can change the regulations to make it very unfeasible for the little business owner to start. So it's very difficult to get your economy off the ground, first of all, because you're competing with these people that they never had communism. And second of all, you've already managed to create such huge gaps that any person that goes into this into the system is now going to have to do the work of 2 or 3 other people, and very few people are actually willing to do this. So Popescu Tăriceanu, a politician, said he hoped Brexit would provide an impetus for Romanian doctors and nurses working in the UK to return home, and cited a nurse he knew who was being called by friends who had left to work. Now, I don't think Brexit is going to get the doctors back. I think they're just going to go to Italy, to France, to Germany, to other nations. Arafat said the country could be sure that people would no longer live for money, but said the system was burdened with needless bureaucracy, meaning even if doctors want to return, they may have to wait for months to do the paperwork. We need a proactive program to get these people back. Most of this bureaucracy is also said because of the European Union. They're the ones that are saying you need this and this approval and this stamped and this whatnot, and then the Romanian government has to comply. Just like we have with Article 11 and Article 13, the European Union makes the legislation and then the member states have to incorporate that into their own personal laws. In Slobozia, Dumitru conceded that working conditions in the hospital had improved dramatically since the 1990s from communism, but said money is not everything. I remember 25 years ago, I'd have to wipe down newborns on a snowy window ledge just after a C-section. Now we have all the equipment we need and salaries have gone up. But it's not just about the money, we have to change absolutely everything, including the mentality in society. Mentality in society is also really detrimental for doctors. All doctors are assumed to be corrupt. I have seen patients going around and just stuffing money into doctors' pockets because the doctor says, I don't want to. I don't need your money, just, go away. But the patient believes that if the doctor doesn't take their money, then they're not going to look after them, which is absolutely false. I know many doctors who don't want to take bribe, and the patients are heckling them. They literally go on the hallway with the money in hand, trying to stuff it in the doctor's pocket. And the main issue with this is that when something goes wrong, the vision is that, oh, you didn't pay the doctor or something. So the mentality of the patient also needs to change, as well as the mentality of some other doctors. I do know that in France, I've heard this, I don't know if it's true or not, but for example, if you go to a hospital and you want the university professor to treat you, you give an extra money, you give extra cash, and he gives you a receipt, he pays taxes for it. In Romania, that's called a bribe. So yeah, I mean, if you go to a hospital, you're going to get a doctor that's on call, and that's the doctor that is going to look after you. But if you want a specific doctor, let's say you want the university professor to treat after you, or the world-renowned blah blah blah, then yeah, you should be a system where you have to pay, and he might be able to give you service. That's something that I would also try to improve, and also very harsh fines and punishment for everyone that takes bribe, and for the people that give them. I think that people who give bribes are just as responsible as the ones that take them. But anyway, that's a conversation for another video. I just wanted to show what immigration is doing to other countries. No one is talking about the countries where people come from. It is absolutely depressing and demoralizing to see that when I'm going to grow old, there might not be people to pay for my pension. There might not be people to be able to support my healthcare. And the reason there should be people to support my healthcare is because I have paid into this system my whole life, and I will keep paying into this system my whole life. So it's money that I have personally paid, which I need something in return. It's not for free, right? But anyway, right, I'm going to get angry if I keep this up. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you guys on the old video.